if me taking this leap of faith is supposed to be a good thing, how am I here how am I here? How am I here in this space of depression? And why am I not getting any signs of what I'm supposed to be doing to get me out of this?
These kind of relationships that get disturbed when we don't take the time to know what it is to sing, to know how to get close to the mic again, or to get some singing doesn't make it happen, or maybe.
Welcome to another episode of Tune the Fork. I have the pleasure of hosting Tia Danielle. How are you, Tia?
I am wonderful.
Why the pause?
Again, words have power.
Okay,
And I want to make sure that I'm saying all the right words
gotcha.
to give me all the right energy.
Well, I struggle with words sometimes, so please be patient if I fumble through.
Oh, good.
So, you have a lot of titles. Entrepreneur is one. Fashion designer, I guess. Stylist. I'm sorry. Stylist. Author. Podcast creator.
Yes.
What else am I missing? Goddess. Like I said, I was gonna let you say it.
Goddess.
Goddess.
No, but that's the gist of it.
Okay.
Rapper.
Oh. Okay.
I kind of leave that on the back end, but
I got you.
that's a part of the evolution. So that's still a part of me.
Hello, beautiful.
Hello, beautiful.
Talk to me about that.
The general conception?
The general, the origin, what it means, what you do with it.
So Hello Beautiful was something that me and my grandmother would say to each other when we came in the room with each other, okay? Only distinctly remember this being a thing in the last year of her life. So that's why it's so important to me. Like, it's not just a saying, it's not just an ebook, it's not just a website, it's special, right? So I would come to her house, and as soon as she saw me, hello, beautiful is what she would say, and I would say it back to her. And I felt like that was her gift to me, in a sense. I always knew that I wanted to have my own business of some sort, didn't really know what it was going to be. I do styling. I'm always on social media sharing fashion, beauty, skincare, all of this stuff. People DMing me, asking me questions. So I'm like, I think I'm gonna do a book. It took me 1.5 years to do this 25-page ebook, right? Because you wanna make sure you're adding in the right information, that is gonna be beneficial. And then there were things in life that happen that, you kind of have to take a pause sometimes and come back to it. And so when my grandmother passed, I have someone here that knew her through her grandmother, and she sent me this gift. I keep getting these gifts, right? And you don't really know they're gifts until you actually get them. And she said it was a pillow cover, and the pillow cover said, "Hello, beautiful." And when I got it and I put it on the pillow and I messaged her and I thanked her, and she knew I was writing this ebook, and she said, now you know what your ebook is supposed to be called. And I was like, wow.
And this person is a friend of yours?
Yeah, her grandmother and my grandmother went to church together, and she just happens to live here in this area now. And she knew my grandmother. She knew how special my grandmother was. And she knew the relationship that we had. Like, she was one of the most important people to me. And I know a lot of people feel that way about their grandmothers, but I've lived every day of my life with this woman. And I'm however old I am. So she had a huge impact on me. Like, I've seen her go through things that I myself probably would not have had the same strength that she had, or would not have been able to move past like she did. And so,
What's her name?
her name was Willie.
Miss Willie?
Miss Willie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really important for me that when people have people in their lives who are very important, who have passed on, that we create space for them to participate and support and show love. So as we move, there's a place
For Miss Willie.
for Miss Willie.
Absolutely. Yes. So that's where Hello Beautiful derived from, the ebook. And I just felt like I had to keep going bigger with it. And because it just felt to me like it's keeping her here, even though she's not physically here. And it's keeping me connected to her in some way, because I felt so disconnected.
From her or just in general?
From her, which also has made me feel a little disconnected from spirituality.
Okay.
And so me creating this website and this ebook just makes me feel like I'm connected still.
So it's almost a form of healing and a form of like recognition of
Definitely.
the gifts you've been given in life, and it's like a reminder.
Because you don't want to feel like anything is in vain. Like I said, before the year of her passing, I have no remembrance of us saying that to each other. That was a gift. Like, I cannot take that for granted, right? So you have to.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody who follows you on social media can clearly see the front-facing goddess Tia Danielle. Like, that's there, right? It's beautiful, it's informative, it's encouraging, it's, it's a lot of things. And we've been trying to schedule to make this work for a while. And I was trying, and when we first started having conversations, it was like when I first started.
And that's what I'm talking about, gifts. Because when I first talked to you about being on this show, on this podcast, and nothing against anything, but I distinctly remember you saying, I don't know how we could make it work, because you do one thing and that's what you see, and I'm more so over here. I don't know how we can make it work. And then here I go doing my podcast, and it took me a while to figure out what my podcast was supposed to be about. And when I figured it out, that then brought you in on another level of who I am.
Yeah.
And that is how we are here in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, things happen on purpose for a reason.
And it all just seems so perfect in the execution and timing, and I'm so thankful for that, because when you first started, I listened to your first episode, and I was like, oh, okay. Some time had passed. I see you posting stories and doing your thing on social media, and and I'm doing my thing on there. And you posted one message or one notification that you had a new podcast release, and it was called Questioning Everything. And something about that said, let me go listen to this thing. And that really opened me up to see you more. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is what your relationship is to the podcast. This is just one of the things, because I think we're going to go a couple of different places based on what I have in my mind, but it can veer. I'm leaving room for the universe. But what you're doing with the podcast versus the social media aspect of it, because I feel what's taking place in the podcast piece is some really profound work, and I want to talk, like, you share a lot in there. So let me take that step back. What do you use the podcast for? It's called Conversations with a Goddess.
Yes.
Do you know Neil Donald Walsh for the Conversations with God dude? Are you familiar with him? He has a series of books called Conversations with God, and I thought maybe it was a play.
No.
Okay.
And you know what's even funnier? I thought I was coming up with something with Conversations with a Goddess. There are like several podcasts
Oh, okay.
called Conversations with a Goddess. I'm like, okay, so I thought about changing the name. But the name that I had in mind of changing it to, I feel requires an extreme deeper level of conversation that I'm not 100% there yet.
Okay.
So we're just gonna keep it as is, but yeah.
Gotcha. So what does Conversations with a Goddess mean to you, and what do you use it for? Because I feel like it's a specific thing.
I've always felt like everything that I do intentfully is for other people. But once it's all said and done, I realize that it's a lot done for me. Conversations with a Goddess, the sole purpose of it is spiritual upliftment, spiritual enlightenment, self-love, self-care. Deep down, that's who I am, right? You may not see that on social media. On social media, you see fashion, you see the sexier side of me at times.
Okay.
And there was a period during my social media journey that I combined everything on my feed. And because I was trying to be an influencer, everyone that was giving me advice told me that I needed to focus on one thing on my feed. And so I chose for my feed to specifically be fashion related because I felt like that's what people were more drawn to. So I started separating everything. And it's hard to really speak about spirituality because religion is such a more talked about topic. And I just felt like doing a podcast where I was more in my secluded space and I didn't have all eyes on me would be a little bit easier for me to talk about the things that matter to me on a spiritual level. And so that's why, part of the reason why I started it. But it has definitely, like episode after episode, I go back and I listen after I record, and I really feel like it's part of my healing process as well. Even though, I'm sharing downloads that I get, and things that I feel on a spiritual level to help other people that may be going through the same thing and don't know how to say it, don't know how to release it. It's helping me too. It's helping me tremendously because it's not sitting inside.
Yeah.
It's being released, for 20 minutes once a week. And I just hope that what I'm sharing, it resonates for who it needs to resonate for. I know that everything is not for everybody, and I make mention of that before every single episode. This may not be the message for you, and that's fine. But if this resonates, then this was the message for you. Or if you think that this would be a message for somebody else, just share it. Everything's not for everybody.
When I tapped in a month ago and listened, I feel like you're at a period in your life from not just, maybe it's the feeling that I got that there are like these professional, spiritual, business, all of these aspects of life that you're at a period now where you're questioning everything. Mm-hmm. Are you still there in a way?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. And I may never get the answers that I'm desiring, and that's okay. When I did that episode, I felt like there was something wrong with me questioning everything. But if you don't question anything, how are you going to grow? How are you going to gain knowledge? It's definitely a powerful thing to be honest about questioning everything. Because it's okay. It's a part of the journey. I have now come to terms with it and realized that it's a part of my spiritual journey for me to question everything. But when I did that episode, I was scared. Like I thought that there was really something wrong with me. I thought that there was something that I was doing so wrong along my spiritual path that brought me to this place of questioning everything.
And what specifically are you questioning?
So like I mentioned, with feeling connected to my grandmother's spirit or feeling connected, period. There were times where my grandmother's favorite scent was Curve, the purple bottle. And I still have her last bottle It's in my altar space. I spray it. But there were times where I would be out and I would just smell it. And that made me feel like she was there, right? There was a moment where my old roommate called me the name that my grandmother called me. Nobody knows. Freaked me out, right? But she had to have been there, right? There were those moments, and then there was nothing. And that makes me feel like, it made me feel like, and it may still make me feel like that, that am I doing something wrong? Am I doing something that she may not feel is right for me? Am I doing something where my spirit guides, maybe like, you know what? I am just not gonna deal with you right now. And if I'm doing something, give me a sign, because the disconnect, it hurts just a little bit. Like, I just felt like I wasn't getting signs like I used to get. I wasn't getting, I wasn't having the dreams that I was having, because I have these very vivid dreams. And I wasn't getting that. Things were happening where I felt like I was getting messages on what to do, and I would do it, and then it would just all backfire. And I would question, am I really getting messages from spirit, or am I bugging? Because how am I doing everything that I feel like I'm being guided to do, and then it all backfires?
And what's your definition of backfire?
So I left a job that I asked for 3 years. And I felt that I was so ready for. And I worked it for 11 months and realized that I wasn't ready for it. I was ready for the money. I wasn't ready for the work, right? And I thought that having more money would make me working a job I would be more okay with it, because I was never really okay with working a job, because I had all these entrepreneur ideas. I'm a creative, and I felt like being a creative, that was my purpose, not just my passion. I felt like that was my purpose. In my mind, passion and purpose were the same thing. And I talked about this on a podcast episode. And so working jobs was like, why am I here? Why am I here? And then everybody's like, your job is supposed to fund your dreams. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get this position, I'm gonna make this money, and it's gonna be okay. It wasn't okay. And so I said, I have to leave, and I have to do what I'm supposed to do. And so I'm listening to Steve Harvey, and all Steve Harvey talks about is leap of faith, leap of faith, leap of faith. And I'm like, I'm gonna take this leap of faith. And so I left this job, and then I left, and I said, oh my God, I'm not gonna have no money. Like, everything was telling me to leave this job. Things started, like, I wasn't feeling well physically. Things were happening. My anxiety was at an all-time high. Everything was telling me to leave. And then I left, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna have no money. So then I just went back to another job. And I'm like, that's really not how leap of faith is supposed to work. Like, you don't leap from a job to another job. And so when I worked this another job, I became even more depressed. I was like at the highest level of depression that I've ever been.
How long ago was this?
This was February, March, April, within those 3 months
Of this year?
of this year.
Okay.
And there were moments where I tried recording myself in these moments in hopes of helping someone, but I never did anything with it. But it was really bad. Not in the sense of I want to take myself out of here, but I felt I had no control over my emotions. No control over my emotions. And any and everything would make me cry. Like, it would just happen, and I don't even know why I'm crying. Like, and I'm doing this myself in seclusion. Like, nobody knows. You may have known because I may have drank more than usual. But in my head, I'm like, if me taking this leap of faith is supposed to be a good thing, how am I here how am I here? How am I here in this space of depression? And why am I not getting any signs of what I'm supposed to be doing to get me out of this? And so, and in that period, my grandfather was deteriorating. My grandfather then passed away. And in my head, I'm like, I can't keep doing this job thing and not doing what I've had a desire to do this whole entire time, which is live life on my terms, doing what I love to do every single day, and making myself happy. And so I left that job and I started this website. Again, feeling like I'm doing the right thing, right? And I start this website, paid all this money to have this website done, have it set up how I wanted, how I felt like it should be. And it was just supposed to be an extension of the book. And the book is a self-help on fashion, beauty, skincare, health, and wellness. So I said, this is what the website's gonna be, because everybody's not an ebook person. Everybody doesn't read a book. Everybody's on the internet.
Right.
This is what it's gonna be. You have my styling services, you have my online boutique you could shop, you have my looks of the day, so I'm not always using Instagram for something, and you have my blogs. I said, this is it. It's built. I bought these clothes. I bought all of this stuff to start my business. Great. I'm finally doing it. And then all the money that you use to start your business starts to run out. Now what are you gonna do? And then I'm back to what is happening? Because I keep doing what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. And then it gets to a point of, I'm clearly doing something wrong.
So the backfiring is something not working out the way that you envisioned it working out in your mind. You're feeling like you're getting downloads, or you're feeling compelled to make a decision in this way, and you make that decision, but you don't get the result that you expected.
That, and I started the website And maybe 2 weeks after I started the website, a spiritual awakening occurred. And I had to go into seclusion. Like I like disappeared. Like my posting on social media 3 times a day on my feed literally went to maybe once a week. I barely talk to people now. Like it went even further. And I spent so much time in my altar space. I didn't like I wasn't doing anything that I was doing. I wasn't going out anymore. I wasn't doing nothing. I was going through this spiritual awakening for like 2.5 months. And I'm like, how is this happening when I just started this website? Like, I'm supposed to be promoting this website every single day. If I'm not promoting this website every single day, how are people going to know that this website even exists? How are people going to buy any of my products if I'm not doing this? But this was happening, and I needed to be in seclusion. I needed to experience what I needed to experience in that spiritual awakening, even though all of it wasn't good. I had about a month and a half of vertigo that I had to like truly deal with because I had to start another job. I had to go to work. And if anyone has experienced vertigo, it's like real debilitating.
Yeah.
But I had to go through all of that, I feel, to show myself exactly how strong I actually am and how what I'm supposed to be doing is a little deeper than what I'm presenting to the people. Hence how the podcast really started. I may have started it last September, but I didn't really start it until the spiritual awakening occurred. And that's how it went from a podcast of fashion. I don't even know how I was going to do a podcast on fashion. Fashion is visual, you know? And the spiritual awakening had to happen for me to be even more enlightened and share that with people. And to realize that your passion and your purpose do not always coincide with each other.
What is your passion?
Creativity,
And what is your purpose?
healing.
Thank you. You just said a lot, so give me like 10 seconds. When you're using some terms, and I want to make sure that I'm clear on what those terms mean to you. Awakening, what is that? Spiritual awakening, I think is what you said.
Spiritual awakening. Um, being being shown being shown what isn't physically present at the moment.
Okay.
Opening up to something that you will have no control over.
What does that process, I like I said earlier, I respect that people have a very close and strong relationship with words, and them motherfuckers I struggle with often. So I like to get people to describe things sometimes if they can, because it helps me connect with what they're just what they're talking about. What does that feel like? What does a spiritual awakening feel like for you?
Like I said, it's literally every emotion that you could possibly feel. During that time, I was happy, I was sad, I was upset, I was confused, I was I was everything. I felt that prior to that, before it actually happening, because I figured at some point during my spiritual journey there would be some type of an awakening. I felt like it would have been a more smoother process,
Okay.
and it wasn't. It wasn't at all. And I'm glad it wasn't smooth.
Mm.
Because there are a lot of things that I have experienced in my life that I didn't think that I was strong enough to handle. And the fact that I made it through this spiritual awakening and I'm able to then share these things through my podcast and be open about a lot of things, it just makes me feel even more empowered and stronger to stand in what it is that I believe in, even though I may be questioning a lot. I still believe strongly in my spirituality and in my spiritual practices, even though in the moment I may not be getting the signs that I'm asking for or the connection that I'm asking for. I don't know what's going on the spiritual side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I don't feel my grandmother's connection. Maybe she's connected to someone else in this moment that I actually need her. You know, I don't know, but I still feel strongly about it. Um, yeah.
From a spiritual aspect, let me take a step back. I have one more question. On the podcast, you do use the word healing a lot, and you just described it as your purpose. What does healing mean to you?
Healing, healing to me is a process. And now I wish I had my phone over here because there was a download that came to me for the last episode of the podcast, and I wanted to word it exactly what it was. But I have avoided therapy for a very long time. I knew that there was some type of healing that I needed based on things that have happened. But I've avoided therapy because I've felt like, one, why I'm going to burden somebody else with my issues, one, which sounds crazy now, right? Why I'm going to burden someone with my issues. Two, I don't know these people. I don't know what they're going through in their own life. How are they going to help me? Like, I've had all these walls up, right? But in that March and April highest level of my depression, I was like, maybe I do need somebody else, because I've always tried to handle it myself, because I know that I have the ability to heal. I know that my voice is healing. I know that my touch is healing. I know that the knowledge and the information that I have from my past life helps to heal. But I felt like maybe I need help in this moment. So I reached out. I opened up myself. I've reached out twice seeking a therapist. And neither time have any of these people called me back. And these signs, I asked for signs. So in these moments, I'm like, maybe I'm not supposed to have a therapist. Maybe I'm supposed to self-heal. And that's fine with me. I was fine with that. However, it was supposed to look like, I was fine with that. So not that I have put therapy completely out, but right now in this moment, I feel like I'm doing a really good job in going through the process, making me more self-aware of myself, that this healing process is going exactly how it's supposed to go. I feel way more empowered than before, way more self-aware than before on a mental and spiritual level. That's healing to me. And not holding on to things that I know that don't even exist anymore. The past doesn't exist anymore. Why am I holding on to any of it?
When you ask that question, what answer do you get?
There's no purpose. There's no purpose in holding on to something that made me feel so sad and angry.
But you were holding on to it.
I was.
Why do you think you were?
I feel like that's what we're conditioned to do.
Okay.
I feel like that's what we're conditioned to do. And that's why we are where we are. Because we are holding on to the past. Something that doesn't even exist anymore. It's over. And I just want to be at peace. I want to be at peace every single living day that I have. If we're going to keep bringing up past things, I don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it. I'm not there. I don't want it. If it's not about peace, if it's not about my happiness for my every living day, I don't want it. Yesterday doesn't even exist anymore. Granted, I had a great time yesterday. I was at peace. Doesn't exist.
I think but there, even though that statement is made, I do still feel like there is something that is being thought or expressed that contradicts it, that I think you recognize to a degree, right?
Because it's hard to let go. It's hard to let go for a lot of people, including myself.
Yeah.
And you think that when you're saying it doesn't exist anymore, you think that you're erasing everything. You're erasing every memory. Life is an experience. The experience that you have every single day is supposed to help you grow and supposed to help you be a better being.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to allow you to help someone else. My experiences weren't just my experiences. My experiences happened so that I can have a story to tell to help someone else.
But they're not even helping you at this point, which is what you're saying you struggle with at this time.
I did.
Okay. But you don't anymore.
No.
Okay.
No.
Because
I literally take everything with a grain of salt at this point. Like, I can't even be... There are so many things that have happened in my life that I have held on to, and I have had to find other ways to release it. I have had to find other ways to deal and move on from me having an abortion. I've had to find a way to move on for that. And granted, it took me 22 years to find a way to move on. I have moved on from it. And words having power. You have to be careful what you ask for. Because all I asked for years was to see this person who got me pregnant, who didn't want this baby, who has now moved on with life, and now has a whole family of his own. All I asked for was to see this person so that I could share how it hurt me. So I could share how it hurt me. And I saw this person at this job that I wasn't even supposed to be at, that I was extreme at my depressed state.
Mm.
If I was never at this job, I would have never seen this person. Never. And you know what happened? Nothing. The conversation that I was promised that I would have, nothing. Nothing happened. And so I had to find my own way of dealing with that so that I can move on. And you know what I did? I wrote a letter to my son. Asking for forgiveness and my decision because I allowed somebody else's desire to make me choose otherwise. And I wrote that letter and I put it in my altar space and I moved on. And now I'm okay. I'm good. I'm really good.
And you know it would be okay if you weren't fully good, right? Like I don't want to. The idea of this healing thing, at least from my understanding of it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because holding on to that did nothing.
Holding on, letting go, and not being. I think they're. What? So. I feel like one of the things that, based on what I'm hearing you say and what I'm processing, things have to be in a place. And once they're in their place, you're good and you can move on. Now, just because they're in that place doesn't mean it's been addressed. It just has to be like in that place. There has to be a word associated with it. There's got to be a framework around it. And once it's there, boom, cool, you can move on. And one of those places I feel is just, and I'm not trying to convince you that you're not okay, by the way.
No,
I don't want to, but
not at all.
because what I'm also hearing is some conflict in the moments when you're not, or when you don't have it figured out. And I'm just trying, and I've heard you also say that you recognize that and you're getting better with not knowing. I'm just trying to reaffirm that side of what your story is about, not so you can put it to the side and still have a feeling about it that you carry, that you walk with, without it having to be a bad thing, or without you not moving on. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like there are a lot of things that I've worked to resolve that don't go away. I've just developed a way to carry that shit with me in a healthier way. So I can't, because a part of moving forward is acknowledging what happened to me or what I did or whatever the case may be, and processing that and then integrating it in my life so that I can move forward in a healthy way.
I've acknowledged that the energy that these certain experiences bring to me is not an energy that I desire to feel or to live with. And I do, at this stage of my journey and my development, I do whatever I need to do to release that energy and receive the energy that's going to make me feel good. Period.
Okay.
The signs that I ask for, or the signs that you ask for, may not always be the signs that we need. Okay? I keep saying that I don't feel connected to my grandmother. And now I'm questioning everything. And that has scared me, and I am not a religious person. I don't do church. I don't go to church. But in me questioning everything, I have been geared towards certain sermons that have helped me. I feel like that's my grandmother, because my grandmother was such a faithful religious person.
Yeah.
It's not the sign that I asked for by any means, because I'm deep rooted in my spirituality. But these sermons that I have been guided to have helped tremendously. I can only believe that that's my grandmother. So I'm okay. I'm okay with it. And I'm okay with, I'm good with letting go of how that experience has made me feel.
Yeah.
I'm so good, because what I have realized in that experience specifically, the abortion, I'm glad I didn't have a kid then. I'm glad, because my whole desire of how I would want to raise a child now, within the past 10 years, totally different. Totally different. Just from like the little thing of not wanting to give birth in a hospital. At 19, I would have had no other choice. I wouldn't even have known that there were other options. I would have never known that there were other options. So I just feel like it happens for a reason, and it wasn't my time. And I feel like whomever's spirit that was in me has forgiven me for that decision and the way it had to end. And I'm good.
And you've forgiven yourself.
I have forgiven myself, because I'm a totally different person. And I just wanted him to know how I felt, because we never had the conversation. And you look at what other people have now that you could have had, and it's like, it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair in the moment how you get to have this family and I don't. And it's not even about that.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't know how his life is with this family. He may not even be happy himself. I don't know. It's not about that.
Right.
I had to let it go and find forgiveness in another way, and I did, and I'm okay. I'm good.
You mentioned that you started your spiritual journey in 2014.
Yes.
What
Intensively. I feel like it started when I was 7, but intensively doing the work, it was 2014.
When I was like 15 years old, I had a real, like my whole mental and emotional shit was real crazy for a long time. And now I'm sharing to just kind of offer a similar experience, I guess, and where I am. I'm a Virgo, and I'm a very analytical person, and I ask a bunch of questions, and everything has to make sense. And it's gotta It's gotta make fucking sense to me.
That's a Taurus thing. Must be a Taurus
It's-
thing too, because I'm the same.
Yeah, if I'm asking this question, I don't have an answer. I gotta keep asking. I gotta keep looking at it in 24 trillion different ways until I can figure out what it is. One of the things that I would do that with was myself. I would look at myself in a bunch of different ways. Why did this happen to me? What happened? And in the process, and a lot of the books that I have, I started like when I was like 19 or whatever, trying to figure out, trying to heal myself. All these sages and gurus and therapists talk about all of this stuff. And I had a very cerebral comprehension of the practice of what healing was, what it meant, but I didn't really have personal experience with the process of it at all. Like I knew the concept. I knew what you got. Oh, I'm one, right? Oh, I can heal myself, or oh, I can do this or that and the third. The universe is everything and all knowing, but I gotta know about this thing. There were all of these contradictions that I had built up that didn't really lend itself to practicing belief and faith in this higher power thing that's governing every fucking thing. And it took me a very, very, very long time. I think it's to realize that there was nothing wrong with me. That there was that all of the process of trying to heal.
Not trying, healing.
That all it was just a practice of not acknowledging that there's nothing to be healed. I was just practicing it. And it's a similar thing that I did when it comes like this concept of being man. Like there's this, the box thing or the label on it or feeling like there's a problem to solve created so much like anxiety in me that I always felt that there was something that I was doing. And the reason why I asked you like what healing meant to you is because I had it, and what you were describing as healing versus the spirituality piece kind of like almost sounded like they're the same thing in my mind for what I internalize it as, for what I understand it as. It's like an awareness. It's a remembering. It's an acknowledgement of something that you were not acknowledging before. Whatever that thing is, or in that very moment. And I didn't understand how I was generating a lot of the very thing that I was saying I was trying to heal just by going through the process. And a lot of it was getting out of my head, and being okay with things not being in a box. And that's faith and belief, I think, in the real most like basic form. Like Absolutely. Not knowing, it's because what do you fucking really know at the
Absolutely.
end of the day anyway?
Absolutely. And that's just like the saying, it's either you're going to worry or you're going to have faith. A lot of us worry every single day. Worry. Still questioning. If you ask for it, it's going to happen, it's going to come. And it's easier said than done. Having faith is easier said than done. But it's in the moments of when you get exactly what you asked for, it's like, what was I worrying for? What was I allowing myself to go through all of these emotions for? And in 2014, I truly began meditating. And that's how I feel like the intent of my journey started. I began meditating, going deeper, shutting off the outside as best as I could to bring in something that was more meaningful, that would allow me to deal with the human side of things. And in doing that, I was able to tap into something deeper. I was able to see things that I wouldn't have been able to see or know about if I had not done so. And that's how I know I came from a past life. That's how I know for a fact that I came from a past life. And I say my spiritual journey started when I was 7 because I've had moments of wonderment of, why am I here? What is going on around me? Very confused at 7. So that's why I say the journey started then, because who questions that at 7? But they say kids know. But it's like, who are you going to tell? Who are you going to tell at 7 that I don't understand why I'm here? And that they're going to receive that and try to help you understand. So you just go on with life. So in 2014, I tapped into something deeper, and it started opening up things, and it started allowing me to see things, and it started allowing me to feel things. And the journey, like I said, has not been smooth. It has not been peaceful. It has had moments of self-doubt and moments of depression and sadness. And I think that in those moments as humans, we don't really know what to do with it. But spiritually, you begin to understand that it's just something that you have to go through. And if you can just get through it, if you could just hold on and get through it, you will then understand why it happened.
So we've got to leave room for that, right?
Yes.
So you mentioned before we came on about the human experience and not liking that part.
The spiritual experience is already a lot.
What's the difference to you?
It's what you truly are at the end of the day. This human experience is really just a facade. Like, it doesn't even exist once certain organs stop working. It doesn't even exist anymore.
But what's your
But the
framework
spirit-
other than that, though?
My who?
Your framework. How are you experiencing? How are you in the amount of time you've lived on Earth in this shell of a body? How? Because you're saying you don't like the human experience, but you like the spiritual experience.
I don't like it all the time. I just feel like for me, I feel like my spiritual self handles things way more differently than my human self. My human self turned to alcohol. My human self looks in the mirror sometimes and, as crazy as it sounds, does not even feel as pretty or beautiful as other people tell my human self. My spiritual self feels amazing at the end of the day. After dealing with all of that, I can go into my space and tap into my spiritual self and just be okay.
So here's where I'm confused.
Now, if you're confused, I know everyone's confused.
And confused probably ain't the best word, so thank you. Your spirit chose this.
That's what they say.
So you disagree? Let me ask that first. So this was an accident, is your belief? I'm asking, I don't know.
I don't. I don't think I chose this, no. I'm not going to say it was an accident. It could have very well been on purpose, but I don't feel like this was a decision that my spirit made.
And that's a tough motherfucking position to be in. It just didn't.
I realized last year that one of my purposes in this life, the thing that I needed to experience and that I needed to come to grips with was self-love, for my self-love, which I clearly was missing in my past life. And I had to be brought back here, not by my choice again, because not by my choice, but I had to be brought back here so that I can get that lesson, so that I wouldn't have to do this again. I truly believe that until you learn your lessons, you're gonna keep coming back to this world. You're gonna keep coming back until you learn your lessons. And that's why I'm here. And that wasn't a decision that my spirit made. It was just a decision that was made.
So
because
the spirit,
when I left my past life, that was supposed to be it for me and my spirit. But clearly I didn't learn the lesson.
so your spirit didn't know that it didn't learn the lessons that it was supposed to learn when it left. It had to go back to the source, and then the source told the spirit that you didn't learn the lesson, and then the source sent the spirit back here against the spirit's will to learn a lesson that the spirit knew
Yep.
that the spirit knew it needed to learn.
Yep.
So the spirit knew it needed to learn self-love because it didn't do it in the first one, but it didn't choose this life. The spirit would have chose.
I didn't know that it was self-love. In my past life, In my past life, I thought everything was perfect, or at least I felt like it was.
I meaning the human?
Yes.
Okay.
But clearly, spirit was missing something.
So who supersedes? The spirit, right? I'm assuming. I'm asking because I'm trying to understand your connection to
Because
the.
They say that we live many different lives. I only know of this one, and I only know of parts of the one before this one. And this one, I'm very well aware of human experience and spiritual experience. I'm very well aware in this life. In that life, I don't think that I was well aware of there being a separation. It was just what it was. But as much as I felt like everything was all good,
But isn't that what spirits do? Spirits know shit that the human don't know. That's a part of the universe. Like, I don't know what 22,432,724 times 32.42 million trillion is. But I know the universe knows. So because I don't know doesn't
and
mean.
I also didn't give myself time in that past life to figure it out like I have given myself time in this life to figure it out.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is you're clear today that there is a distinct difference between human and spirit, and spirit is is connected to the all-knowing, knowing everything and all of that. So, but you're making human assessments about an omnipotent, all-knowing spiritual thing. So, in my mind, as a human, I guarantee know that I don't know nearly half. That's one of the things that gives me comfort, knowing that I don't know, but that there's this greater thing that's running shit and got faith. So whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. But what I'm hearing you say is that the human part of you knows what the spiritual part is doing. And when those two things don't align, it's the human part that's questioning the spirit part. But the spirit part knows more than the human part. So
And in between that is faith. Faith in letting spirit do what spirit needs to do in order for you as this human to get through this human experience. To me.
And I guess the part that I'm saying to that piece is you're saying that the spirit didn't choose this life. The human Tia Danielle is telling me that the spirit didn't choose it. The human Tia Danielle.
I wouldn't, and I think for a lot of people, I would not have asked for this life and to experience the things that I've experienced in this life in order for me just to get to this point. I think that's a lot of us. Like, we wonder why we have to experience the things that we experience. I wouldn't have asked for this. Especially
The human wouldn't.
The human. I feel like my spirit also has truly been affected by what the human has had to deal with.
But that's a human statement. There's no way that the spirit is being affected by any motherfucking thing we doing. Like, there's no way that's possible. it's connected to the most greatest, dopest, most beautiful thing on the planet. How could we, it's like saying, I'm getting ready to sprint. It's like, to me, right? I'm getting ready to take a droplet of Kool-Aid and put that into the middle of the ocean and then expect the ocean to turn into Kool-Aid. We are beyond an infinitesimal expression of the larger thing that's going on. Not just from an experiential standpoint, but also from a who gives you shit standpoint, I guess, at the end of the day. Like in the grand scheme of things, trillions of stars, quadrillions of atoms, and all the people who've ever lived on in the history of the world and all the other worlds, like the fact that we're impacting that, like, it's hard for me. We're just having a conversation, right? But it's hard for me to think that I'm influencing that. Is all.
I get it. And I feel like that's the great thing about spirituality, is that it allows you to be open to any and everything, and to assess on a more open-minded level than to be so, this is how things should be done, this is how you should think, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what happened. And it's okay if someone doesn't get your journey. It's okay.
But I'm hearing you say that that's what it is, though. That it's this thing. I'm hearing you say that that's what this is.
For me.
For you.
For me.
Right. So in the spiritual aspect, you're saying this way is the way that it is for you. There's no room for it open.
Not that it's no room for an opening. It's just that I know that everything that I say is not going to be for everybody.
I got you.
But I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
And I'm cool and I'm good with this conversation. What I'm not cool with is someone who's not even going to listen and to feel whatever it is that this journey has had me experience. And there are a lot of people who are closed off that won't even allow this to happen. I'm open for all of it. I'm just saying, so far on my journey, this is how it has been. And this is my thought process. And this is how I have felt about the experience. Give me something else to think about. By all means, give me something else to think about. But like you said, you're going to keep asking questions until it makes sense.
Yeah. And
you're going to keep asking questions until it makes sense. And I'm okay with answering all questions until it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it might not even get to that point. Because I'm still learning, and I'm still growing, and I'm still acquiring whatever it is I need to acquire to be a better person in 6 months than I am in this specific moment right now.
I find the multiple lives thing very interesting. I don't necessarily think I'm open to so much to where it's like, I don't know. That's kind of like where I think I am. I can't say with any degree of certainty whether this is my third, my 300th, or my 3,000. I would doubt it would be my first joint, whatever that is. I do believe, I think there's something going on that I have some awareness of, but I have, in a larger scope of things, no clue on how all of that shit is connected and moves. And I'm okay with that piece of not knowing, but being open to it. But what you're saying does sound like it's more along the lines of what's actually happening now. Just to,
I feel like if you have questions about this world on a deeper level, that you came from somewhere else, that this is not your first time living as a being, because you're not understanding something because you came from somewhere else where it was. And now you're here and it's like, what is this? That's how I feel. That's how it was for me. There may have been times in between the period from when I remember to now, but the period from where I remember clearly had a tremendous impact on me, because that's what I remember. That's where I've gotten visions from.
what were those?
In 2010, I was in school for fashion and retail management, and a lot of our projects we had to pick time periods. And I was always so drawn to Egyptian culture. So anything that had to be made, I chose the Egyptian time period. And I just always wondered why I was so drawn to that, why I was so drawn to the pyramids, the writings on the wall, always drawn to it. And in 2017, I became aware of that's where I came from. Ancient Kemet. And the vision that I had wasn't a very pleasant vision, in the sense of it wasn't a very pleasant vision, because I was attempting to commit suicide. And everything around me was ancient Kemet. It was pyramids. It was everything around me was that, and I was by water. And I'd only tell this story to certain people because I know how hard it is to receive this for a lot of people. But I can only tell you what I saw. And the person that was trying to stop me from doing so lets me know that in my past life, I was very connected to a higher being of people. I wasn't a princess by any means, but I was very connected to kings and queens. I was very loved and adorned by my immediate family, which makes it even crazy that I was attempting to leave that. And the person who was trying to stop me from doing so was indeed a queen. And the only thing that I heard her say in this vision was, I can't allow you to do this. And I know that I attempted to cut myself. And went into shock that I did it. And I believe I passed out and I drowned in the water. And I can only hold some truth to that vision because everything that happened in that vision is totally opposite of how I feel about things in this life. Like, I never understood suicide in this life. Didn't understand it at all. I didn't understand how you could leave other people feeling the way that they feel when you leave on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, you left on purpose. But I did that myself. I attempted to do that myself in my past life. I can't even imagine how I made my family feel in that past life. But the more I tapped into what I did and who I was, I began to understand it more. I drowned in that life. I almost drowned when I was 7 years old in this life. It's like, it was the same, but it was opposite. And that was just one vision. Then I've astral projected back to Egypt, ancient Kemet. I've astral projected. I've been inside of pyramids. I've been inside of pyramids with other spirits, having conversation. I've been told things that I would probably never say because it's a lot. But I've had these visions. So you don't have these visions for no reason. And you have to have a certain level of connection to experience visions like that. And when you have visions like that, do not take them with a grain of salt. Like, figure out why. It could really help in this life with this experience that you're having in this life. If you could just figure out why you're having those visions. And I had to have those visions. They had to come to me so that I could gain the lesson of self-love. I was clearly missing it. No matter how many people adored me in that past life, it doesn't even matter. If you don't love yourself, like, that's all that really truly matters. Forget everybody else. Yes, it's great to be adorned, but if you still go home and you feel unloved, that's self.
How are you doing with self-love now? Honestly.
I think that I'm doing great.
Okay.
Again, there are a lot of things that need to be worked on, but that's
How do you measure self-love? I'm just interested in knowing.
I I mean, I clearly probably couldn't just attach goddess to my name if there wasn't a high level of self-love.
Okay.
And knowing who I am and what I deserve, and knowing that can't nobody take that from me. I believe that I present myself as such. So can't nobody take that from me. And I attempt so hard in the things that I show and my self-love and my self-care. I only hope that it is projecting onto someone else to acquire that same self-love for themselves. Again, everything I do is not for me, and it's not particularly for my experience. It's for whomever is looking and watching.
I think people miss that sometimes. I think I did, to be quite frank. I think it's like that. Most of what we're looking at with people is superficial shit, and meaning what they're presenting. Like there's the what and then there's the why. Like, why is somebody doing it? Somebody could be saying James is posting this shit because he's doing it for selfish reasons or whatever. I struggle with selfish, the word, and all that kind of shit. But anyway,
It's okay.
no, right? Because it's not a
selfish.
It's perfectly fine.
It's
healthy. It's healthy.
It's very healthy.
My problem, selfish, it's when it's at other people's expense that I feel. If I'm using people, like if I'm choosing to do if I'm taking my energy and holding space for me because I know what I need, then yes, that's selfish. Now, if I'm taking space from other people and extracting energy from other people because that's what I feel like I need, then that's at the expense of them, then that's selfish.
Exactly.
But no, you hold space for yourself. But I didn't the for other people is on Conversations with a Goddess, from what I saw. Mm-hmm. And a large part of what I felt was a representation of that. Number one, you said it. And then number two, it was a sense of vulnerability. I get real connected to people who are being vulnerable. Like that is.
And I think that's another reason why I went the podcast route. I feel like there have been times where I've unintentionally been vulnerable on my Instagram and it wasn't received well. That's fine.
Yeah.
But everybody's going to click on your story. People that you don't even know. I'm looking at my stories. My page is a business page. I can see everyone who's looking at my story. I don't know where half of these people come from, but everybody can see your story. Everybody's not going to click on my podcast episode, right? If you clicked on the episode, you might as well just believe that you were sent to hear that episode. So you're gonna receive me in a different way than you would have received me just by going through my stories. And I think that's why I am less on social media and more on the podcast. I still don't post a lot on social media because I don't think social media is very social, to be quite honest. I don't get what I desire from it anymore. And I don't feel like to the core of who I am, I feel like I just will be received way more through my podcast, right? And I barely share that on my social media. Like, I don't share every episode on there. I feel like whoever is supposed to hear it is gonna come, and that's who it's for. Social media, I just post fashion at this point. It's just, this is another side of me, but if you want something deeper, listen to my podcast. If you want a deeper side of me, listen to the podcast. I'm not going to give my deeper side of myself on social media because it takes a lot of energy to do social media. A lot of energy.
So
It doesn't take a lot of, the podcast is, it's the easiest thing for me to do.
And I think that's probably, and that's a you thing. I don't think that's necessarily in general, because I basically have what you're describing flipped. Tune the Fork is that. I've taken, so of your passion and your purpose, those healing, to use your terms, and creativity, that's what this is. I've made them the same thing and have chosen to highlight that specifically above all others. And that is a very uncomfortable thing for me. And it's a lot of motherfucking work, and you don't get received well and all of that kind of stuff. So it's and easy for me doing it in that way is the last thing it is, but that's where I feel I want to do. That's where I feel I want to do the work, because that's what I feel my purpose is. Mm-hmm. And my passion is creating things. So I don't give a fuck if it's music, if it's a shirt, whatever it is, I am going to be talking about. And for me, healing is awareness. How are you becoming aware? Because when there's pain comes from a sense of disconnection in a way, not seeing what's there. And I feel like everything is all in one. But anyway, that's what Tune the Fork is, your podcast, but I flipped it. And what I do in the stories is very loose stuff that kind of fits with what I feel the overarching theme is. But your podcast is what resonates the most for me, because that's what I feel this is. And I don't know like what your decision, your path is going to be for doing any of that, but the tone, the pace, all of that is very, it's going to connect with the right people in ways that your other stuff just isn't going to. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what you do with that or whatever the case may be, but
And that's what I'm trying to figure out. So I'm trying to figure out, because I feel like I'm starting to get my mojo back as far as my business is concerned, and the website and the brand. And I'm at the point where I'm ready to start giving my energy back to it. But I know that it has to be different than what I initially set out for the website to represent. And still keeping,
You think so?
I do think so, and what I'm going to say is only because I am at a higher level of self-awareness than I was previously. I now know what I'm great at and what I'm not great at. I'm not great in selling and selling myself. I'm great at creating and having the creation speak for itself. I was trying to sell clothes. I was trying to sell services. And just because I did the website doesn't mean that this just started. Like, I've been working at that part for years, and it hasn't worked. And I felt like having a website based around that would make it more professional, which would allow people to feed into it more. And granted, I only presented the website in the end of April, beginning of May. I just know it has to be different.
Okay.
I just know it has to be different. And so now I'm trying to figure out how to make it different without losing the core reason of why Hello Beautiful even started. And now I feel like I need to tap into my grandmother even more at this point, because I need her help. I feel like she gave me a gift. I don't know if I am using the gift correctly. So I feel like Hello Beautiful, the brand, is supposed to be deeper than what I have allowed it to be. Fashion, beauty, skincare, that's all great. I feel like that has a lot to do with self-love and how you present yourself, but it has to be deeper, because people are dealing, and women are dealing with a lot outside of trying to look good and look beautiful every single day. And I want to give women a feeling that my grandmother gave me every time she said hello beautiful. And it had nothing to do with what I'm wearing. Yeah, that'll bring people in, but what's after that? It has nothing to do with what I'm wearing or where to buy something or anything of that nature. The feeling that my grandmother gave me when she said hello beautiful made me feel love, made me feel happiness, made me feel connected. That was our connection. I want women to come to my website and feel a connection. Every woman is not a size 0 or 1 or 2. How is someone who is not my size going to connect to me outside of fashion? I have to give something else. So I have to redo it, and I'm trying to figure it out as we speak. So it's there, but it's going to be bigger and better than what I ever could have imagined it to be.
When I first started this, there's a philosophy that I learned in a sales class years ago from a guy named Simon Sinek, and he talks about why, like knowing your why, and he puts it into like a bullseye thing. What you do to demonstrate your why can be anything, but you've got to be clear on what the why is and be uncompromising in that, because that will be what you build everything around in, like your thing. And the why of Tune the Fork is a disruptive content creator that seeks to create new patterns of thought, speech, and imagery. I have a fundamental belief that most of us are repeating patterns that we did not create. And they're so integrated into our lives and in our thinking that we don't even question them anymore. And we repeat it over and over and over again.
For no reason.
So I literally want to disrupt those patterns by showing people having healthy, constructive, loving conversations. The imagery, all of it is intended to disrupt that pattern. I'm going to use in the future fashion to disrupt that pattern. I'm going to use different problem solving abilities to disrupt that pattern. But the overall objective is to use content to disrupt these patterns so that we can create new ways of interacting, engaging, and responding to people. And I don't give a fuck how much money somebody brings or tries to talk about doing something different. Anything that comes into this space that does not align and allow me to do that in an ethical way that reflects what that why is, if I think about sending something, if I think about getting somebody on the guest, thinking about bringing somebody on a guest, it's like, okay, if this motherfucker, regardless of how big it is, if they just gonna come on and talk some old shit and not do something or be, non-constructive or whatever, they can't come on. I don't care how many followers I gain from it. But it's helped me steer the ship in a way that stays consistent. Now the challenge has been to just be consistent, and I've struggled with what consistency means to me, because I want this shit I want an episode at least once a week. We've been doing this 11/11/2020. It's about to be 2 years, 108 months, weeks.
Okay, let me ask you, how many episodes do you have so far?
This is 60.
And you started this in 2020.
11/11/2020.
So it's almost 2 years. So let's just divide that. 2 into 60 is 30. So you've done 30 episodes a year. That's a lot.
It's not 52 though.
But it's still, and now only trying to have you see it another way is because I've struggled with what consistency means based off of what other people are telling you what consistency means. And I thought I had a problem with consistency. I don't. I've been on YouTube since 2014. It is 2022, so that's 8 years. I have like 260 YouTube videos since 2014. It's YouTubers that have been on YouTube for a year and have probably, like, if you break up I don't even know the math, but 260 videos is a lot of freaking videos. It's a lot of recording. It's a lot of editing. It's a lot of posting. It's a lot of promoting. It's a lot of energy. Consistency is not the problem. If I wasn't consistent, there wouldn't be 260 videos.
But
I don't mean to cut you off.
Nah, you good.
If I wasn't consistent, I think coming back to something should also show a level of consistency, because I keep coming back, and I keep doing more and more and more and more and more. If you don't see first of all, if you're not doing what I'm doing, if nobody is sitting here doing a podcast, you don't have nothing to say to the person that is doing the podcast. Nothing. You're not setting up the cameras. You're not setting up the set. You're not calling the people. You're not writing the note. You're not doing none of that. How are you to tell somebody they're not being consistent?
And I don't think, for me, consistency isn't a standard that somebody else sets for me. It's a standard. So like our heart beats about, let's say, once a second, right? That's 60 times a second, a heartbeat. If my heart beat the same way I breathed, then that would be a problem. So there's a standard of consistency with heartbeat versus breathing versus a lot of different things. There's a framework. My heart ain't gonna never talk about it ain't doing what the lungs are doing. They got a separate type of interval. I get that. When I started out, I said I wanted to do once a week. That was the framework and the baseline that I set for me. Who came up with that? I don't know. That's just some shit I pulled out of my ass. It was hard staying consistent for that initial period of time, but we did it. Things started happening outside of that pushed. My objective, but that's not somebody else telling me. There's somebody else that's doing like 3 a week or 4 a week. Whatever their metric of it is I'm never going to say to anybody outside of me that what their intervals are good or bad, right or wrong. They know the conversations they having. They know the bullshit that they creating and the excuses that they making and all of that. Nobody outside of them can tell them what that is. But I know that I should be at 108. I'm not knocking the 60, right? I ain't saying that I ain't done something that I should be proud of, but I do know that objective of that 108, and I've done 2 in a week sometimes to get back on track because I was gone or traveling or something and couldn't do. So I'm trying to move those things around, and now that it's just me doing it, I have a much more, I can maintain the framework because there's nothing outside of me making that keeping me from doing that.
Right. And also, please remember your thoughts. Damn, I forgot my thoughts.
I'm sorry.
This is why you have to cut people off sometimes. No, but consistency, like a lot of people just like to throw that word around, and they just like to, like, if you ask anybody, what is your advice for, da 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 da? You have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. Okay.
What do you have against that though? Set a goal and keep it.
What if that's not the person's issue? What if consistency is not the person's issue? So
then you give them another piece of advice, right?
You consider yourself to be a creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
My personal feeling, as a creative, creativity is you have to have a feeling. For me, I have to have a feeling. Like something has to like move me and be like, okay, bet I'm gonna create. I'm gonna do something.
Yeah.
That feeling doesn't happen all the time.
Nope.
It does not happen all the time. So to tell a creative to be consistent, or your definition of consistent, is crazy to me, because in order for me to create something meaningful, there has to be a feeling. There has to be a feeling. Else it's not going to do what it's supposed to do.
But sometimes we're not. I got a homeboy who's a big time producer. Sure, it's all about feeling, but the technical acumen that he had to develop to get to that point, to even be able to express himself when he does get that feeling, it took commitment and it took consistency. So and I feel like when we're talking about some of this stuff, I think we're talking about where people are like in their journey. So if you're early on, I didn't know, I can be honest with you and say I was 100% bullshitting. Let me take a step back and go even further. I create whatever the fuck I want. That's me, right?
I had to get to that point.
Huh?
I had to get to that point.
So, right. I always had that point. I had to, that's always been the truth. I had to accept it. And when I wasn't doing the things in my life, when I wasn't manifesting the things in my life that I said I wanted, it was because I was bullshitting. 100% honest. And it was because I lacked drive, motivation, it was whatever it was, or I just, and what I ultimately was coming to terms with is I really didn't want that thing. So I had to be clear and honest that I didn't want that thing. And sometimes that thing was happiness. Sometimes that thing that I didn't want was peace, because I was repeating a pattern of bullshit and drama and accepting. So I had to own that, and then I had to stop beating myself up for choosing it and then telling myself that I wanted to choose something else, right? So just give me 1 second. So when people are starting in the beginning, you've got to create a whole new pattern to start a new skill and become proficient at something. And sometimes you got to do work that you do not want to motherfucking do when you don't feel like doing it, so that you can get to the other side. What I feel people were talking about in those instances where they're saying consistency is that piece. How you create, what you tap into and all of that, the manner in which I had to obsess over this dumb shit, to even think about how I want to structure certain things, what my relationship is even to the podcast itself and the concepts and where I envision it going in the future and all of that. That required most of that happened in times when I didn't want to do certain things, but I knew I had to do it because I created a framework and said, you got to do this shit no matter what, motherfucker. I got to edit this shit when you leave. I don't want to. I want to watch C on motherfucking Apple TV. I'm a few episodes back and I definitely want to do that. But I got to start putting out shit tonight. I know how long it takes to render. I know how long it takes. This is 2.5 hours. It's going to take me 5 hours to fucking edit it. And it's going to take another hour to render. And then it's going to take another 3-4 hours to upload to motherfucking YouTube to get the 4K content. So I know how long I'm going to be up and what I'm doing and how I'm going to have to do the shit. But I'm trying to keep a motherfucking schedule in my head. And how I feel about that schedule, despite all of the other shit, got to take a back seat. And through the process of being discomforted in that way and sticking to the consistency and the plan, it allows you to create new and in different ways than you wouldn't have if you just. I talked a lot, I'm sorry.
No, listen. You have to talk so I can feel. So I can feel the energy that's going to bring up some energy in me that's going to allow me to rebuttal. So you have to talk.
Yeah. There is one thing I did want to highlight. that came up that I'm going to ask as for consideration on your side. I started my therapy when I was going through my divorce. And I realized how bad therapy processes are. I had to call maybe about 20, 30, 40 people. I called dozens of motherfuckers. And even when you do get one, they gon' suck. Because just like a mechanic, just like a motherfucking beautician, just like anything else, and even if somebody refer you, it's good and bad to them niggas too. It's a gang of them that are just inept, just trying to get paid. When there are things that we want in the universe, I feel the universe asks us to prove it. And sometimes the way the universe asks us to prove it is by making us do a little bit of work. That way because we're demonstrating how much we want it. Like, how bad do you want it? You say you want this healthy relationship with yourself. You say you want to have a little bit more awareness. How bad do you really want it? I know there are things that you're doing on your own. And ultimately, when you do go talk to somebody, they ain't gonna tell you something you don't already know. But sometimes it's just helpful to hear it from somewhere else. So I'm saying all that to say, I hope you call whoever you need to call for however long you need to call them so you can find someone you connect with. For me, it was somebody who was black. It was somebody, I wanted a black man. I tried to open it up to a bunch of broad motherfuckers. But if you felt a need to reach out and you tried, maybe that was saying something too.
Yeah, and I've given the two individuals that I have called, I've given them, like, there's been a lot of space in between the time I called and not have heard anything. So it's not like, I waited a day. I waited a week. No, it was a lot of time. Hopefully my earth angels are watching this. I have two very close people to me who allow me to release the way I need to release. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I would be mentally or emotionally. I speak a lot about I try to help people a lot with how they release, and I speak of journaling and meditating and talking to whomever you need to talk to spiritually. And not holding it inside. The journaling has helped a lot. I haven't done it in a while. I was extremely consistent before, but I really haven't done it in a while. But it has been extremely helpful and beneficial. Even though I may not feel the connection that I desire to feel from my grandmother or even from my grandfather, because I have never realized how much I am like this man until this man left. I still sit in my altar space and I talk to them. I talk to them. I don't know if they are there in that moment and they are listening, but I talk to them. You have to let it out. I don't know the reasons why I cry half the time, but I know it was a release of something. I know that there are a lot of people who are afraid to cry. You have to cry. You have to cry. You have to write. You have to talk to spirits. You have to have earth angels. Angels that are here living with you on this planet. If it was not for these two people, I mean, I can release anything to them. And they're going to tell me the truth. They're not earth angels in the sense of that they're just my yes people. They're not. They make me see a lot about myself that I may not have wanted to see. And I give them so much love and grace for that. And I know a lot of people don't have that, but that's why I say writing is so beneficial. When my grandmother passed away and we were cleaning out her stuff, I found a journal that I had given her for like Mother's Day or something. She wrote in it twice. I took that same journal. I wrote to her every single day until it was filled completely. That helped so much during the first year and a half of her not being here. I wrote to her every single day as if she was still here. I shared everything.
Yeah.
Writing is healing. Writing is so healing. And I would not have even believed that unless I heard Oprah say it, because I was watching an episode of Oprah one day years ago, and a friend of mine had gotten killed, and I didn't know what to do. And on this episode of Oprah, she told the person to write to this person. And I wrote a letter to him. And I was like, this is amazing, because it's like, you know, they're not there, but having this release makes it feel like they're still there. Writing is important. Having earth angels is a blessing. Talking to spirits, there are people to make you believe that that's crazy. There are people to make you believe that you only should be talking to one spirit. No, there are many. If you think you're going to leave here and you're not going to exist in the spiritual realm and no one is going to want to talk to you when you're not here, that's crazy. Like, there are other spirits that exist. Talk to them. Talk to them. I think my grandfather talks to me through, I've acquired this love for plants that is crazy. And every time I feel like I'm doing something wrong, I wake up and I see a new leaf coming from these plants. I feel like I did something right. Because of his energy still speaking to me somehow, some way. Talk to them.
What's cool about it is I think there's never, at least I can't speak for the world, and I really have very little focus on it because it's not something that I can control, but there will never be any judgment in this space in regards to how people support themselves and create frameworks for them to make it through. I like highlighting the fact that people have a method, and then if that works for them, and again, this is 2.5 hours, however you live, however you think, however you feel, however you process what you think in the morning when you wake up. Tia Danielle lives with Tia Danielle, James Shelby lives with James Shelby. All of these truths, all of these realities, all of these things are always there. So what is, but you sharing in the way, and you're sharing these things that work for you, hopefully can give someone, if things aren't working in their life, they at least have someone who's honest enough about the things that are working in their lives, and if it's for them, it's for them. If it's not, it's not. But at least it's there as something for them to hold on to, or maybe even implement in their life. Because to me, that is a part of that pattern disruptor. When people come on, there's a pattern that led us to this point. Mm-hmm. And if the pattern that led us both to this point is one that's working, and it's one that gives us the context and the things that we need, then by all means, maybe the pattern disruptor isn't at this point, it's with the people coming and looking in, and that's just as motherfucking beautiful. I know my pattern is disrupted because I shared space. You chose to come on and share things that I've never spoken to anyone about, and I really appreciate that. And it means a lot to me that you loved yourself enough and trusted yourself enough to say the things you said on that podcast, and to share it, and to give me an opportunity to connect with you in that way. And I hope that it gives other people an opportunity to connect with you in that same way.